Elon Musk says Twitter handles, quote unquote, engaging in impersonation without clearly specifying that they are parodies, so will be permanently suspended, and there will be no more warnings. And somebody asked, well, what if I make a Joe Biden 69 Twitter account and pay the $8 and get verified, right, with the new blue check mark scheme for $7.99? What would happen then? And the answer was very clear. Well, that would be caught. You would apply, as anyone does, for the blue check mark. It would be given to you, and during the process, and then a day or so later, it would be removed, and you would be permanently suspended, and your money would not be refunded. So thank you for your money, and you're now suspended. That's what would happen.
That's
So
so strange to deal with the fake
Well,
account.
that was really a reaction to the fact that over the weekend many people changed their account to be in Elon Musk's name, and they made a lot of parody accounts, uh, about Elon Musk, and it upset him, and that's why he started that.
he's already has every tweet he does. The first 20 tweets below him are people making Elon Musk 25, 26, 27, 28, 29 with whatever his current photo is, trying to pump crypto scams. So he's been battling and vocally battling this for quite a long
Right.
time. Yeah,
Yeah, that's why he instituted that.
sure, no
Yeah,
doubt.
But he has also called back some of the people he fired.
so one thing he did was he actually did. They created it literally within an hour after him posting what the policy was about the fake accounts. Define it. If you're a parody account, put it there. And then everybody wanted to push the envelope, and that's when it all went down. I
Okay.
mean, the new terms about, because he knew exactly what was going to happen. You know, and let's be realistic. There's going to be a lot more of this that comes up. I'm even tempted to go get my Robin Sage account verified, which everybody knows was a fake account.
There was also that I saw an article as well that how it didn't actually make economic sense in terms of the few things that he has done since he bought it, and there was even a linkage why he bought Twitter and how it wasn't making economic sense with what he has been doing, and that there may be an angle for him to make nice with the right as well as with the China and other justifications that the article was trying to intimate, which was quite interesting for me.
But first, he has to keep the site running. And apparently, some of the people he laid off were necessary for that. So, in the Twitter Slack yesterday, um, there were messages that said there are opportunities for some teammates to come back, putting together names, you know, by 4 o'clock or something like that. So they were going to offer people the opportunity to come back and help them.
Wow, that work? Do they have to offer double the salary?
Well, that's what people were speculating, but you know, the real question is, can we can we pick out the people who are really committed to Twitter and to Twitter's mission? And I don't know why, what was missing, but there's a really great parody of an XKCD cartoon that showed that the guy that in this big pile of metal parts like Jenga, um, the guy that handled the bottom part that was responsible for keeping the whole thing up and that it was all balancing on was laid off. I mean, I've lost the whole humor of it, but I'll find it and post it in the tech news
So
club.
Tyler, the other thing, if you look at his streamline, even he didn't like the fact that he changed the name. He changed it to Community Health, and with that, even Jack weighed in on it.
Oh no, you're talking about the bird watching, and he renamed it Community Notes. And
Yes.
yes, and Jack said that sounds like a cheesy Facebook name. And he says, well, bird watching sounds ridiculous, and it doesn't give you any idea what it really is. And anywho, but Elon's very happy with the choice after that little tit for tat with Jack. Anyway, so they're going to call it community notes or whatever, so that people know that there's going to be community members out there commenting on tweets. And there's a huge potential new side or facet to Twitter that is hidden in that exchange that I will reveal for you now, which is um, also related to. I'll tease a little further before I make the reveal. Elon made another kind of announcement that, let me get the quote direct exactly right. Twitter needs to become by far the most accurate source of information about the world. That's our mission. And you're thinking, what? Well, that's not Twitter's mission. And even Jack jumps in to say, "Well, I have an alternative mission for you, and whatever." And so when a CEO says, "Here's our mission," and Elon is notorious for having a very laser-like focus and an ability to, make impressive progress towards said focuses, very ambitious focuses, incredibly ambitious focuses. So Twitter needs to become by far the most accurate source of information about the world. That's our mission. Now, this community notes will play a very big part of that, and I think the most apt comparative would be Wikipedia, because one of the first reactions that Elon got was kind of a very strong, a whole lot of journalists took issue with this and saying things like, I'll find a good example because there's a whole bunch of people responding to him. Accuracy, or is that the one I'm looking for? And then the gist is journalists are saying, Bubba's opinion now is equal to the New York Times. And Elon responds, "You're the problem. You think you have a monopoly on truth as the official mainstream media."
But see, I can understand where Elon is coming from there, Tyler. You know,
Oh, I do too.
Twitter is like the place where I spend my most of my social media time. And my thought about it is that when Twitter was new, the news was accurate. You know, if there was an earthquake or there was a war or any other kind of breaking news event, you got the ground truth. I mean, that was kind of where the ground truth phrase got popular. And over the last 15 years, that has changed.
Right. Well, there's also the point is that he believes the verification process will enable this to remanifest this kind of believability, and this community notes aspect of things will create a Wikipedia-ish type environment of collaborators who work to establish ground truth on important tweets, for lack of a better word.
But Tyler, um, uh, you can verify someone and they have identities and things like that to avoid the bullets, which is great. But it doesn't mean that even verified people are not spreading non-truths, known fact, including Elon himself. He retweeted something that wasn't true about, Paul Pelosi, and and getting truths and fact and sharing that type of Wikipedia kind of information is not necessarily coming from people who are not real, but but have a different agenda and just make up a story. So that's a little bit, I'm not sure is a good or the only way to verify and perpetuate fact and avoid non-fact stories.
Do you think Wikipedia works? And if you had to make a very oversimplified conclusion, do you think Wikipedia is truthful?
Well, Wikipedia, I think, is because of that academic rigorous. The people are checking each other, and it's like a journal. When you are trying to put as an academic and writing paper, they worry about their reputations and things like that. So because of that community and that type of verification before something is posted, or even after it's posted, that someone else verifies it, it kind of is having a decentralized academic rigor that it has. But Twitter does not have that. Speed tends to be the currency that everybody wants to do. You want to be the first. You want to be the one who get the most likes and retweets and things like that. So sometimes, when the incentive is disaligned, I don't think it works. But that's my
Can you
opinion.
imagine a partnership, for example, between Wikipedia and Twitter, where Wikipedia, now that they've pretty much built out the bulk of the Wikipedia, hasn't on a percentage basis, it's kind of reaching its significant, growth phase is now over, and diminishing returns on contributions to the Wikipedia because now it's going, in other languages, it's obviously still growing. In English, it's kind of matured now to the point where a lot of the contributors might not have as much to do as they once did. So my point is, can you imagine a Wikipedia partnership with Twitter whereby Wikipedia starts making a separate site called Twitterpedia, where the editors verify and debate the truthiness of the most significant tweets each day?
Yeah, I think that would be, but I'm just saying that those incentives are disaligned, right? Social media tends to be, it's almost like media without the media regulation and things like that. So it is always going for being the first and having all those things. So if Twitter is going that route and giving up the social media platforms, most cherished kind of business model that they've got, getting trending and fast and that type of thing, then fine. Because Wikipedia is like academics, and those academics are the slowest people, if you know, because they worry about accuracy, not speed. So um, if the incentive is aligned, yeah, absolutely. If Wikipedia is aligning and working together with Twitter, but is that what they're gonna do?
Okay, well,
That's my question.
that's the right
And
question. And here's the answer. So somebody named Stephen Mark Ryan tweeted the following about 12 hours ago, saying Twitter's secret master plan, 4 steps. Step 1, allow people to freely share thoughts, opinions, ideas, and information through tweets, obviously. Step 2, allow community to add relevant context and notes, aka the community notes that we're talking about now. Step 3, while doing so, end dependence on advertising revenue so no one has Twitter by the balls. Step 4, win. And Elon Musk responded to Stephen Mark Ryan saying accurate in his
Hmm.
4 plans here, which is what I'm saying, that this long form community notes, think Wikipedia pages, of verified accounts debating, uh, as in the same sense that Wikipedia editors debate each other, which by the way they do, um, And this could be incredibly helpful. Now, the one thing it's not helpful to is journalists. This would drive the journalist batshit crazy. And he's essentially kicking the bee's nests of the publications and the journalists writ large by doing this. And he's well aware of that, although there's never been a lot of um, warm, fuzzy feelings between Elon and mainstream media generally, which is why Tesla and SpaceX don't even have PR departments for the journalists to engage with. Like every other company bigger than a fucking froyo yogurt companies usually have PR departments. And this company called Tesla that you might have heard of, or SpaceX, do not have PR departments that cater to and have contacts, for the journalists to reach out to and ask questions about and everything else. No, they said scrap those departments. We have our own channels that we use for our narratives that we will send out messages when we have them. And
So
that,
Tyler,
yes.
this that's the example I was gonna share with all of you. Already this is happening. We have the entire community of Tesla and SpaceX. There are people, bots, and fake accounts that, for example, report that today the FSD made this mistake. And then bunch of people go out, try that same thing, confirm that that news is not accurate. And by this experimentation, now we know that these accounts are real, they report the truth, as opposed to these other accounts which are not real and they are like posting fake videos. And what happens normally in Tesla community, once you find out that this account is fake, we tell everybody and nobody follows that account anymore. Based on that crowdsourcing, you're able to not only find out that who is the person or the account who's sharing accurate news with you. Once you find out that this person is not sharing accurate news with you, then the entire community don't follow them. Simply is taking care of the fake accounts and the fake news. So to Messi's point, if for example your account is confirmed that it is you, and nobody's faking you, because that was the case prior to this verification process, that people could be like, it was in my account, somebody else reported on with my name. So you are eliminating that part there by verification, supposedly. And then if I am making a claim which is false, it's my reputation online. And I have to be very careful in terms of what I'm tweeting out so that the people who are closely following me are not going to turn back and prove that, I'm sharing misinformation. So in a way, it's taking care of multiple problems.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like that Denzel Washington clip, right? You either watch the news and you're misinformed because you're watching the wrong news, or you don't watch the news and you're uninformed. So it's really difficult to say what's the truth, and this might be an interesting way to deal with the multi-perspective view on history, right? History books usually are one or two history books. Governments say this is history and that's not history. This seems to be one of those situations where the old way of how the world told stories is coming to an end, and we need a new way to preserve the fact that there are many perspectives to stories, and maybe there's some truth or validity to each perspective.
Is
But
this only a
also, I
feature
think
available if you have a blue check mark? Because I've never seen it.
The community
How do
note,
you, yeah.
previous Birdwatch was by invitation only inside of Twitter. And now it isn't yet clear. It's a great question, Ken, as to how and who will participate in community notes.
Community notes has come up several times for me, so I think it's kind of open for everybody because I don't have that many followers on Twitter.
I wonder if they come to a conclusion that's opposing Elon Musk, if that would be censored.
Well, Elon made a great tweet about that today, saying that his commitment to free speech goes so far as to he doesn't and has no plan, will not be banning the young gentleman who publishes his private jet itinerary at every instance, which puts him in grave existential threat. It's a threat to his personal life that he does that, and he's not going to be silencing that individual's tweets, for example.
Tom,
I
when you
think
say
it
it
would
comes,
also be good as owner of that and want to be an example, not to use it as echo chamber. For example, what he did with the Dogecoin pump and dump and things like that. Or again, I'm gonna repeat that again, retweeting some false information and getting a link to something that's just bogus and has been debunked he himself. So if he is going to do these types of things and he wants to have trust, he should be also a good example.
Tom, when you say it comes up for you, is this like something on the left side of the page where you have all those choices? When you
It'll
see your
pop
profile.
up.
What?
It pops up like a survey, and there's a bunch of check boxes or not, and then there's also a comment box.
Oh, so you know what? You've gotten selected to do that. I don't think I ever remember seeing that. Okay.
Which is sad because I only have 137 followers.
Yeah. Okay.
I was on Twitter I was big on Twitter for a while. Like one of my best accounts, I had up to like 247,000, and then I just got rid of it because I got so sick of Twitter. I literally got rid of the 5 accounts I used, being personal ones and business ones. And then I don't know, starting up a new business kind of forces you kind of back into it. But it's been a different experience too. I also don't see a lot of people getting the same reach that they used to, based on likes and stuff as well.
One other potentially important revelation today on this topic is an account called Everyday Astronaut, which makes really interesting YouTube content. Says if Twitter could handle the full-length feature videos that I produce and can offer a similar monetization system like YouTube does, I would consider uploading my full videos to Twitter for sure. And Elon says, yeah, let's do that. And then somebody named Quinn Nelson says YouTube gives creators 55% of ad revenue for what it's worth. And Elon says we can beat that. And that's very interesting because the industry, YouTube is the best deal in town at the moment, of giving 55% of ad revenue, and has from the very beginning. And when I say the beginning, I say my own personal account as the first paid YouTube content creator. It was 55, 45 even back then in 2007 when we turned that on. So Elon saying we'll beat that or can beat that. The question is, will he? I imagine he will, knowing his nature. He'll do it just on the principle of it to say it's the best. We give a better split, and they're going to turn on videos just like to go head to head with YouTube. So they're going to add long form video content and go ahead. The question is, will it be horizontal or vertical? And there's an interesting potential answer here, which is both, because TikTok is more or less fundamentally vertical. YouTube is more or less fundamentally horizontal, although quickly changing towards vertical. Twitter uniquely could do both. And that's kind of a benefit to them, to Twitter in this instance, because there's no expectation of one way or the other, really, on video content. Although there is, all the talk of trying to rejuvenate Vine before the end of the year, and that will be primarily vertical. But how that content will work inside of Twitter, I imagine Vine clips will be embeddable in Twitter, but so will YouTube videos. And will they play games to try and limit YouTube videos from posting in Twitter and ask you to upload it natively? Yeah, maybe. That's the game that Instagram and Twitter went back and forth on forever. That's why you've never seen an Instagram photo natively embedded in Twitter, for example. So this is Twitter, old school Twitter, engaged in this crazy game of blocking its competitors or perceived competitors from displaying their content as it probably should have been. And actually, in many cases, even YouTube comes up as a URL instead of a player embed. Anyway, we'll see how that all shakes out.
Good question, Tyler.
Yeah.
So, you know how he brought over some of his people from Tesla? Do we know which people? Because based on everything that you've said, one thing that sounds a little bit interesting is the key thing is going to be the streaming aspect and the data compression aspect. And how much that has to be streamed and compressed with Tesla. That's where I'm curious.
Okay, I think we've exhausted the tweet conversation for today.
So Tyler, there
Tyler,
was
I only had one little reflection regarding all these companies that now are canceling their advertisement on Twitter because of his taking control and perhaps bringing back some really evil plot. But the thing is here that this must be, from the company's perspective, this will be that they open up for the competitors to actually take the place and take all this marketing volume and use them for other brands than General Motors and etc. 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 Have you seen anything of these trends, Johan? Dan?
I have not heard any comments about that. The only relevant comment on this was David Sachs on the recent All In podcast, who's working kind of in the Oval Office, metaphorically, over there at Twitter HQ, revealed that the advertisers that are abandoning are responding to a uh, crafted narrative that Twitter is now um,
Racist.
racist, and that that racism is running amok because the moderation is gone and whatever. And that's why Elon's saying, no, 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 the moderation hasn't changed at all. The moderation, the head of the moderation team can assure you himself that nothing's been changed. And in fact, they're probably doing a better job than ever of, clamping down on hate speech and whatever. And yet there was an effort by who knows, to get advertisers to abandon Twitter, and the scheme they concocted was to say that there's a report now that there's a lot of racist hate speech going on, and so you should no longer advertise on Twitter because it's no longer safe for your brand to be there because your adverts will be in proximity to hate speech. So
You know what? It's either hate speech or it's either racism or anti-Semitism. And I'm hoping this diminished vocabulary that we have for what to call things will go away a little bit after the election because it's really ridiculous. I mean, yeah, there might be hate speech, and yeah, there might be racism. There is everywhere, but there are certain groups whose efforts are totally going into strengthening the perception on Twitter that that's there.
well,
And I don't know what those groups expect to happen because if Twitter goes away, what are you going to all run an instance of Mastodon? I don't want to.
yeah, that's not going to happen. But the point, I'm sure the response would be that the verification process that's underway, then the part that really hasn't been spelled out is that it will be very easy for Twitter consumers, readers of tweets, to say, only show me content by verified accounts. And then that will likely nearly instantly remove a
damn
lot
it!
of
I
that
fucking tripped over.
type of content. And what it can also do, very interestingly, is allow advertisers to be rest assured that their content is only being seen by verified account. Being seen, I want to advertise, but I only want my tweets to be seen in the context of people with verified accounts. So in the view, there will be a viewing option. Now, for example,
Yeah,
there's
but
yes,
It does a verified account mean somebody who could be a journalist, or does it mean somebody who is willing to pay $8 a month?
somebody.
Because I've been listening to journalists all weekend long, and boy,
Yes,
are they divided.
yes. So I'll answer that for you. So, to the best of my ability, the that the people who currently are verified or who have paid for verification, either way, verified accounts. So there will be an there's currently two ways to view Twitter, right? There's chronological, or more technically reverse chronological, which is unfiltered, or the personalized, quote unquote, as its parlance was used initially. Personalized Twitter is an algorithm similar to TikTok, to the best of their ability, to show you what they think you're going to want to see, right? The personalized feed and the chronological feed. That's it. Those are really your only two options at the moment. There will now be a third option, which is the verified view option, which is I just want to see verified content from verified users. And to answer Dr. Francine's question again more directly, what's in that feed, that new third feed? It's content from verified accounts. What are verified accounts? People that have blue check marks. How did they get the blue check marks? They were either have them, like myself, and I'm sure there's others on stage, or people who paid to be verified. And then once that third one exists, you can tell advertisers, would you like to advertise in the verified feed? Because might be more valuable to many advertisers, and I imagine it will be.
Most advertisers are going to want a larger reach than
Of
that.
course,
So
of
I
course.
can't imagine they're only going to do verified. But to Francine's point, the KKK will be able to get themselves a blue check mark. Anybody who wants to write a check, pay the money, can get a blue check mark. That's not going to mean that anything about the quality of the content. When you're paying for the check mark.
Actually, he said if you are verified, you're going to be on the top of people's stream. So it's going to give you like prioritization.
In the
Um,
Right, in
yeah,
the traditional algorithm, yes.
right. And then it would probably be also top in SEO when you're searching for stuff too.
True.
So then
It,
it makes more sense to get all your employees verified as well from a business perspective.
Kara Swisher said she wasn't going to get verified. She never had done it before, and she wasn't going to do it now, and she doesn't care who pays for it.
One of the things that also floated up to the surface during this discussion regarding pay for verification is that apparently, and this was acknowledged by Elon himself, is that people could pay $15,000 to actually get a true verified mark from personnel at Twitter. He actually answered yes on that question. And that thread really did spin out, and people start speculating who have paid. Tyler, did you pay for your one? You undone.
No, what it was basically like an insider threat scenario. So there were a lot of people inside of Twitter that would get you verified for whatever deals that they're working with. So you ever go here on Clubhouse or on Instagram and all these people that you pay a service and then they'll get you verified? There was always a backdoor of paying uh, Twitter employees for that. And I think that's what the whole thing was about. So you're paying employees off to get you verified, but the people that probably do deserve it weren't getting verified through the standard process.
okay, have we exhausted the Twitter? We'll circle back on this Twitter conversation tomorrow, of course, and no doubt there will be some development. But are we
So,
done?
so Tyler, there's a new story out, not related to Twitter, but I thought you'd be interested in it because it broke just as we were on doing this. That involves the lodging industry that you're in. So, which is apparently Airbnb is now saying they're going to allow searches or I think all of their searches are going to include cleaning fees. So the cleaning fees are not going to be hidden anymore. Because I think there's an issue with people not realizing what the cleaning fees are when they're renting an Airbnb. So curious if you want to comment on that. I
Yes,
tweeted it out, so I hope. Yeah.
Brian, the CEO, tweeted it out today, saying essentially he had heard there was a lot of people complaining about how Airbnb hosts, were pulling a fast one on guests by having very, very high cleaning fees, which were not as transparent as maybe guests would have liked. And that was a way to make a lot of money. And it made, because, let's just unpack this for everybody. When you're searching on Airbnb for a place to stay, the price is one of the main sorting, ways that people like to sort, and they want to see the cheapest available. And then you have an easy way to move your price window, so you're willing to pay, between 100 and 200 per night for some place, or between 50 and 100. Okay, great. And then you can rank them by price, so you'd see the cheapest ones at the top. Well, guess what? That pricing previously didn't include the cleaning fee, and the cleaning fee can be whatever the host wants it to be. And there were examples of hosts putting in $500 cleaning fees, and you, as the guest, didn't really look at every detail of the booking, and which you're not really totally expected to analyze the cleaning fee necessarily. And although it would tell you the total price, for your credit card, and you would obviously see the total price, and that would include the cleaning fee, by the way. And that was why Airbnb waited so long to make this update, because although they're being very polite in not making telling people that they're responsible for their own purchases, which they obviously are. I'm sure internally they're saying, "Hey, idiot, you saw the total price before you clicked, purchase, and that total price does include the cleaning fee that you're claiming you didn't know about, and you were fine with the total price." But people want to be able to see the room rate, which is the price for the room, the cleaning fee, and you can have other fees too. As a host, you can add in a convenience fee, a resort fee. You can make up any fees that you want. So people were claiming they want to be able to see all of these fees, and they want those fees to be included in the sorting. So we want the sorting to be done by total price, not by room rate. So that's what they're now going to do, is what Brian said.
Question.
Yeah.
Did the Airbnb I forgot because I used to be a host, but I forgot. Did they charge a percentage of the cleaning fee
No,
previously?
they don't.
Right? So
Correct.
I think this is also a way for the host to run
Correct.
away with the
Great
extra
point.
Airbnb
That's right.
percentage. Yes.
Because Airbnb charges about 20% commission on the room rate, not on the total amount. And so the
Right?
cleaning fee amount is commission-free earnings, essentially. So that's what you can do, is have a very, very low room rate and a very, very high cleaning fee, and you're seen very high up, and your price appears to be very cheap on the per nightly rate listing, as they were kind of shown, and you weren't paying the commission on the cleaning fee anyways. And yeah, people were abusing it, and it got way out of hand, and now they're dealing with. They've effectively come up with what they feel is the
I
right
was just
solution for it.
thinking previously before the IPO, Airbnb didn't want to piss off the host, and now that they have IPO, they want to get all the money back. So
That's a
that's
great
why they
point. They
shut it
couldn't
down.
risk a whole bunch of hosts getting pissed off leading into the IPO. That's a fair point. Okay, so now the next big thank you for that, Ken. I'm sure that's going to be in. I know that's new, although it was more like 5 hours ago. I remember seeing Brian's tweet earlier today. The top story has changed since we started an hour ago. The top story right now is FTX's Sam Bankman-Fried insists that FTX is "quote unquote" fine after Binance, their kind of competitor, the other major exchange. There's a handful of these major exchanges: FTX and Binance and Coinbase and what have you. Anyway, so Binance begins selling FTX's FTT coin, and FTX CEO says they're fine. And so the related article is that Binance's CEO plans to sell the remaining FTT tokens received from exiting FTX equity back last year. There you go. I don't think it's that big a deal. And then there's now the Elon Musk Twitter parody impersonation issues that we all debated for the last hour. That's the third top story. And then the fourth top story is Apple expects iPhone 14 Pro and iPhone 14 Pro Max shipments to be lower than anticipated due to COVID-19 restrictions at Foxconn's factory in China, which makes sense because we saw videos, did we not, about a week ago, of those Foxconn factory employees running like the wind away from those factories, knowing they're about to be shut down. And I don't want to sound like I'm tap dancing on anybody's graves, really, but the videos that come out of China of people running out of IKEAs because somebody tested positive at the somewhere in the IKEA, and they're going to lock down the IKEA for 10 days, and it turns into a thousands of people running for the exits as if their lives depend on it, are quite common if you search for them. And this happened at the Foxconn factory, and so that's why we saw last week videos of people running like their lives depend on it and jumping on any vehicle driving by the factory to get the hell out of there as fast as possible. And production's going to go down when the employees are no longer there to produce the iPhones, and that's a pretty safe bet that there's going to be less iPhones. Bloomberg says they have sources that Apple expects to produce at least 3 million fewer iPhone 14 handsets than anticipated in 2022. Next is from the Wall Street Journal. They say they have sources that Meta plans to lay off thousands of employees this week. Just like Twitter did a couple days ago. And something tells me that the brouhaha around Meta laying off thousands of people is going to be significantly less than Twitter laying off thousands of people, as they just did. And by the way, you would be hard-pressed to name a big tech company other than Apple or Google or Amazon. I think even Amazon did they not? But
Amazon announced a hiring freeze.
sure.
Yeah,
Um,
and apparently Apple has one too that they're not acknowledging.
okay, fair enough. That the how do we say this? We've covered ad nauseum on a daily basis for months the significant tech company layoffs in the realm of 20-25% of team members. Have we not? Yes, we. So much so that I begrudgingly say, holy shit, not again today. I can't believe this is still going on for weeks and weeks and weeks. Multiple companies each day are being announced that they're laying off 20, 25, upward, sometimes 30, 35% of their team members. Twitter just did 50, although Twitter notably was a little overdue for as many would argue, for that process. And Elon's catching all of the blame for this when every other company did this in the past several weeks and months. And, so Elon's being painted
No,
as a
but much
very
smaller percentages, Tyler. So I mean, you've seen a lot of tech firms trim. I would say it's most tech firms were cutting back 10 to
sure.
15%, not 30 to 50. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So now Meta's laying off thousands of employees this week with an announcement expected as soon as November 9th, the first broad staff cuts in its history.
So
There you go.
here's so I wonder how people are going to react when the financial companies start doing their layoffs, which I know are in line pretty much this month and next month, which are going to be at about 5%. And when you look at some of these larger banks, 200, 400,000 employees at 5% is huge.
Okay. So, next up, Bloomberg says they have sources. After cutting 3,700 staff, Twitter asks dozens to return upon realizing some are needed to build features Musk wants and others were sacked in error.
It's like, will I still have a job in 2 months when I'm done this? Would be a good question.
And Bloomberg says they have sources. Elon Musk fired over 90% of Twitter's 200 plus staff in India over the weekend, including 70% of the product and engineering teams. And he made a
He just
comment.
needs
Yeah,
he just needs to leave some people in India who he just needs to leave some people in India who are willing to be imprisoned or something, right? Because doesn't India require like
they do.
potential hostages? Yeah, yeah.
So indeed they do, yes. He made a comment about Twitter loses somewhere in the neighborhood of about $3 million a day on salaries and whatnot. So next is from Time Magazine, Q&A with Mastodon founder and lead developer on how decentralized social media servers mitigate hateful speech, why he built the service, and more. So here's the journalist giving platforming Twitter's potential replacement as a subtle nudge, nudge, wink, wink to give you an idea of how mainstream media is going to try and help Twitter's competitor in this process of its kind of transitionary period, let's call it. While it's at its most vulnerable moment, you see media wanting to help their Twitter's potential alternative. And next is from the New York Times. Ahead of U.S. midterms, researchers say YouTube, which often flies under the radar, has misinformation blind spots that allow false narratives to slip through. The video platform said it had limited the spread of misinformation ahead of Election Day, but new research showed that false narratives continue to slip through. And there's a separate New York Times article, although related. It says Russia reactivates its troll and bot networks on Gab, Parler, and other platforms seeking to influence the U.S. midterms and erode support for Ukraine. Washington Post is doing a profile on a celebrity lawyer and central figure in Elon Musk's bid to overhaul Twitter, named Alex Spiro, who has done much of the legal heavy lifting thus far. New York Times has another one. Internal Post and sources, Twitter delays rolling out verification check marks to blue subscribers until November 9th, the day after the U.S. midterm elections. Not a bad idea, I must say. That's probably a smart choice for fear of approving, because the approval process, as Ken or somebody made earlier, is just because you're approved doesn't mean you're not a white supremacist. It just means your name is, Cheryl Tong. Cheryl's still going to say many crazy things as the verified Cheryl Tong. And some of those things will be wrong and maybe even offensive to some people. But if it's what she's saying is legal, then it will likely stand. And if she's saying wrong things, but she's verified, the easiest prediction I've made in a long time is you're going to see an article on November 10th that says, here's a verified Twitter user that's saying something that's technically wrong, but Twitter verified this person. People can still be wrong and be without being pseudonymous by actually revealing their actual names. There's plenty of people on Facebook using their real names and photos who are wrong about stuff. Maybe you've seen this yourself. I tend to see it quite frequently. The next one is African e-commerce giant Jumia announces co-founders have stepped down, replaced. I'll look at Ethereum's Shanghai update. Washington Post says they have sources that Donald Trump tells allies that he can't leave Truth Social for Twitter because he's propping it up and doesn't want the brand to collapse. And Unity, which makes the game engine, merges with ad tech company IronSource in a $4.4 billion all-stock deal. Unity stock is down 75% year to date. Airbnb plans to show the total cost of stays in search results, as we just discussed at length, including cleaning fees, starting in December, following complaints over opaque pricing. That's a very beautifully worded headline there from the Wall Street Journal. Well done. What else? The UK's ICO reprimands the Department of Education for giving employment screening company access to data on up to 28 million children. Alibaba and other Chinese companies halt advanced chip production and tweak designs, responding to U.S. sanctions that cap processing power. Here it goes. China's big tech is about to get kneecapped as a result of these U.S. sanctions that were a bit overly dependent on U.S. intellectual property. And we'll let that be a lesson to countries who, withheld medical supplies to the U.S. during a pandemic. We were a little overly dependent on China for making little paper masks, and they're a little over dependent on anything of significant technology, which they're about to find out the really, really hard way. And NBC News says some creators are urging parents not to post videos of their children on social media, arguing that kids can't contest and removing all the content is hard. Well, yes, that's true for the time being, until the facial recognition algorithms mature, and then everyone can say remove, anything of my face. Although it'll be for a price, which, by the way, is the business model of Pim Eyes. If you go to Pim Eyes and upload a photo of yourself, you can then see every photo of you online, and they will charge you $20 to remove it from their search engine. It doesn't actually remove it from the source, but then no one else will be able to find all of your other images. Interesting business model. Some creators, the White House plans to push for antitrust legislation in the post-midterm lame duck session, perhaps a final shot. Who cares? An investigation details India's hack for hire industry, which helps global corporate intelligence clients target business journalists and politicians. Hack for hire, there you go. And those are your big boring headlines for today. Now we go to the tweets. Did anybody have a tweet since we met last time?
Tyler, I actually wanted to go back and maybe someone more knowledgeable than me can comment on it. This whole Sam Bankman-Fried story, because I'm looking at this and it has some remnants of stuff that I remember from the banking crises that we had back in '08 and other things where when you start to get the denials that something's wrong, it reminds me of Lehman. It reminds me of Bear Stearns. It also reminds me of usually with the assistance of the federal government, and the federal government's not involved in the crypto markets like it's involved with banks, where they had the healthier banks kind of bail out the smaller banks. Okay, sometimes they kind of pressed them to do that. And what SBF's been doing has been trying to go around and support some of these companies that are having problems, so the entire market doesn't collapse. And the thing about financial firms, and it's not just the banking crisis that I've been through, there's other ones. You take an insurance company, just any kind of insurance company. Okay, if they were to lose their credit rating, you can't sell insurance unless you're investment grade. Okay, crises and confidence in financial firms, okay, tend to collapse them very fast in a way, for example, that another type of a company, like a Twitter or a Facebook or an industrial company, even won't collapse as fast. Financial firms typically can collapse overnight. I have seen investment grade level financial firms collapse pretty much very quickly, once there became a crisis of confidence. So when I'm starting to see these denials, it's reminding me of these crises of confidence. That could be very problematic. He did make a comment, by the way, that he said, like, well, our business is highly regulated because we have gap audits. Well, a gap audit isn't regulation. I mean, as far as I know, crypto basically is not regulated like anything else in the financial, world. So I would actually kind of like, watch this, and I'm particularly interested because he bought, or his firm bought, supposedly, I don't know if the deal closed yet, 30% or something of Skybridge Capital, Anthony Scaramucci's company, because Anthony's firm suspended redemptions because he got so deep into crypto at the kind of the top of the market that he's got a little bit of a problem there. And so I'm now thinking, when I first saw that, I thought like, well, Skybridge has a problem, but now I see this news and I'm thinking, maybe maybe they both have a problem, and he needs, that he acted to help Skybridge, because if Skybridge ended up liquidating its crypto, then that could be a problem for the whole, crypto, ecosystem. I think there may be more there. I mean, it's just too many eerie remnants of other things I've seen in other parts of finance, but this is not an area that I know as well as the other parts of finance. So I'll just leave that there.
But I'm suggesting, Ken, that it works very much like the other parts of finance, because I've just seen a headline in the Bitcoin rooms saying, get your crypto off exchanges, meaning, they expect some of the exchanges to have trouble.
So how does that naturally unfold? Where governments
Um,
naturally are going to go after exchanges because that's a little more efficient than going after end users, as the
exactly.
as Napster
But if
found
you
out.
if you're if you've got if you've got Bitcoin on an exchange and the exchange goes under, you probably lose your Bitcoin because
Right.
none of this stuff is insured.
But follow this train of thought through with me here. So we're now starting to see the governments are going to go after the exchanges and force them to regulate, right? And then that's going to lead to the natural consequence of people saying exactly what you just said. Oh, get your stuff off of the exchanges. Okay, fine. So you've got it in your cold wallet somewhere. Okay, great. Now, how are you going to transact with that, right? With other users. And of course, you're going to want to transact with businesses. But guess what? Then the government's going to tell the businesses next, but starting with the big ones, Walmart and Amazon and everybody, Apple, all down the line, you can't accept that. And so now you, as the end user, can only exchange with other users. So there will be a best case scenario that
It'll
the
be just like it used to be.
right, like it used to be, right? They're pushing it underground, so you'll have this underground ability to exchange with any ostensibly anybody, person to person internationally. But will we all value it in the same way when that's the extent of it? You're not really able to exchange it for um, traditional purchases, for lack of a better word.
Well, I think that's over anyway. I mean, I pulled out. I'm done. I experimented. I had a nice decade, and I pulled out.
Okay, so the next, did anyone else have a tweet that we want to get into
Uh,
before I start reading the tweets from
Kel,
Beth?
did you wanted to bring something up? Kel? Okay, I think she's not there. Move on.
So Valerie has one from Reuters. Taiwan to invest 10 million euros towards chip production in Lithuania. You know what's interesting about that? I do. I'm sure BB does. And I'm sure the people on stage who have really good memories know what's very interesting about that. Anyone remember? I do.
Yeah, it's a anti-China position.
Well, Lithuania was the first to stand up for Taiwan sort of independently, so to speak. And that really pissed off China in a huge way. And Lithuania's like, yeah. And China says, okay, no more trade with Lithuania. And they're telling everybody, you can't do business with Lithuania. And Lithuania's like, go fuck yourself, China. And so now Taiwan, the headline today is Taiwan to invest 10 million euros towards chip production in Lithuania. Interesting. Although people reading that headline probably don't remember from a year ago when that whole Lithuania support for uh, Taiwan happened, but it did. I don't. I wonder if it's even mentioned in the story, in this Reuters story. It should, if the journalist is even remotely good with context here, because there's a very good reason why they're obviously reciprocating the kind of goodwill. Yes, Lithuania allowed Taiwan to open a de facto embassy in the country in November last year. Yeah, exactly a year ago. There we go. Angering China, who views the democratically governed island as its own territory. Yeah, good. So they got it in the fifth paragraph. Well done to Andreas Saitis, who wrote that piece, for making sure you got that important cultural, contextual, historical piece in there. BB has the next one from South China Morning Post. China's cyberspace watchdog taps Huawei in tech self-reliance mission to further Xi Jinping's tech self-sufficiency drive. China's really striving for tech self-sufficiency. They don't have a choice. They're starting to get a little bit of the Cuba treatment. And they're going to have to be self-reliant and create their own intellectual property, which they are incredibly, notably lacking in when it comes to semiconductors. And officials in China visited Huawei and Kuaishou executives to explain the key takeaways from the Chinese Communist Party's National Congress, where they decided, guys, we're not able to steal all of that intellectual property like we used to. That those pipelines have kind of run dry because the U.S. figured out how we were progressing via corporate espionage. And so we need you guys to figure out how to do this shit. So chop chop, clock's ticking, because we need to continue making progress like we've done over the past 40 years. And get busy. Get busy on it. You're the smart geeks. Figure it out. You're Huawei, for frick's sake. Figure it out. Well, Huawei doesn't even have its own 5G chips, turns out.
Yeah, especially among all those giant tech companies. So it's Huawei. It seems they have, just like Tyler said, they dispatched the mission to Huawei. I think there's still some under the table actions, but it's much harder than before. But other companies, just like for example, Alibaba, Ali Corp, or even Tencent, among all this, still they chose Huawei to be this actor to do for the future self-sufficient tech company.
Okay. Next is also from BB from the BBC. Oh, you did it, BB. It's been a while. Well done.
It's a long
The
time.
Instagram debuts new age verification tools in the UK and EU, because those are two separate things now. Now users have the option to record a video of themselves that will be analyzed by age estimation technology instead of uploading an ID. That's wild. Users changing their date of birth to that of an adult can upload a video of themselves to prove their age.
But isn't this much easier to to get the verification if you have someone to help?
So check this out. The next one from BB from CNN. Billionaires emit 1,000,000 times more greenhouse gases than the average person, study finds. And that reminds me of an article over the weekend of the Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam was met with by, what do we call them? Environmental protesters who were riding bicycles around the private jets, preventing them from liftoff on the runways of Amsterdam's main airport. And there was a lot of videos made of it that were quite humorous and targeting private jet owners and forcing them to stay grounded seems to be a new escalation, in which I told you was going to continue to escalate. You might remember my predictions on this, as this will inevitably lead to more. It will escalate to terrorist-like activities on major CO2 emission locations, to intentionally be nebulous here, via crowdfunding, no less. So you could say eco-militia. Apple wants to change the Hey Siri trigger command to just Siri, removing the Hey, and my own devices all just perked up at the sound of that. Apple wants to. Oh, shut up, Siri. Apple wants to change the Hey Siri command to just Siri. Airbnb making it easier to avoid expensive cleaning fees. That's from Ken. We got that. PT Yoder has Twitter now asks some fired workers to please come back. We covered that. And Evan has the one Australia bets on facial recognition for problem gamblers. Clubs and pubs in the country of Australia's largest state are rolling out AI tech to spot gambling addicts. But critics flag privacy concerns.
On it. Sorry, I'm still not sure about that.
Oh, shut up there.
Do you know how the Japanese pronounce Siri? Siri.
Siri.
It's
Siri.
very
You know,
offensive to.
once you wake her up, she's full of piss and vinegar and ready to do things. But when you really need her, she doesn't wake up.
You know what
Is it
though?
like just like your wife?
If we could adopt the Japaneseism of referring to Siri as Siri-chan,
Siri.
I would be all for calling her Siri-chan as like the wake up call, because that would put a smile on my face every day. Si-chan or Siri-chan. Siri-chan.
Siri.
Siri-chan. What else do we have? From Thomas Tong, Apple warns of lower iPhone 14 Pro production. We covered that. And yeah, it's all, we covered it. We pretty much covered all the big headlines. And we'll do it again tomorrow, although at the regular American time of 7 a.m.
Yes.
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 There we
And
go.
the band is going to have a room in 1.5 hours time. Does offshore wind power blow? So please join him if you like.
So,
Uh, uh,
so are
I
we
thought twice
pushing?
about the name, but thank you, Shan. I'm sorry.
He's a British, so don't challenge his English.